Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? Am I loud enough? Yes, hopefully? Okay, great. Thank you. When we got started on this journey, we were looking at a statistic that said 79% of entrepreneurs found that capital formation was one of the most important and crucial aspects to their business success. And this is across all industries, all segments. Every time I see that number, I wonder, who is the 21% of entrepreneurs that said, nah, capital important? No, not to me. For most people, this is a crucial component to being able to build and grow companies. And that leads us to two problems. Building things costs money, and Americans have investable income, $6.7 trillion annually. But historically, there's been a wedge that keeps these two markets apart, and that has been government regulation. For the last 80 years, people could not invest in their local economy if they were not an accredited investor. The problem is only 2% of Americans are accredited investors. So if you take this room of approximately 100, 130 people, across the overall market, there would be 2 people that could be investors. We want to fix that problem. That's why we created MassVenture. We asked, what if all Texans, and now with Title III, nationwide, could invest in their local economy? What does that do to our jobs? What does that do to our communities? And what does that do to overall economic growth? So we put together a team. I'm leading the team. I used to be a startup attorney, so I've worked in this space before. I was actually started out my career as a programmer at Rackspace, which is now a 6,000 person hosting company. And I've been a Techstars mentor and a Geekdom mentor in the past. So I'm very familiar with this space. Ethan Jones is our platform lead. He spent the last 7 years as a UI and UX developer, and he leads our technical team for our platform. And Adriana Pedraza has spent 20 years in operations and in legal. So she handles a lot of the really challenging regulatory components that we have to deal with. We also have a first-rate team of advisors. One of them, RC, is based out of Austin. He was my law partner previously and has a lot of great connections in Austin and in government. Moses Loveno was the market president at Citi, and he advises us on financial and structuring. And Amir Marabi was actually at the governor's office as their director of small business development, and he has joined us as an advisor after the administration changed there. So we've got a fantastic team. The thing that we see over and over and over again is that Americans' cash stays on the sidelines. Most people have their investments in cash, cash equivalents, bonds, and stocks. And most people think they're diversified even when they're not. Then there's this entirely new generation coming into the investment market now. The millennial generation wants to do things differently. When you talk to millennials, and this is from a Merrill Lynch survey, they said 72% of millennial investors want to be self-directed. They don't want to have a fund manager or intermediary between them and their investment. And 60% of them say that social and values-based investing is the single most important criteria in making their investments. I'm sure that's after return, but it's very much at the top of their mind. And what we're seeing now is a huge sea change. Since 1800, there have only been about a half a dozen major regulatory changes in how Americans invest their money. And at the same time, we've seen a huge growth in our economy and GDP growth. What this means is that during your lifetime, you're only going to see 1 or 2 major shifts of this type. And 2015 is one of those years. We've been at the forefront of this. I actually started working on this problem in 2011. We went to our local legislators and said, there's a problem with capital formation and we can fix it. We have tools to do this. So our local rep was actually the chairman of the House Investments Committee, and so he sponsored what's called a legislative charge that asks the legislature to look at the problem and fix it, and that's a charge that we wrote. Then I went and testified to the House Investments Committee and explained to them why the new rule set we were proposing was going to be an effective and safe way to open up capital formation in Texas. And in November of 2014, the Securities Board unanimously approved new rules making Texas the largest state for equity investing crowdfunding nationwide. As you might expect, MassVenture was also the first platform approved by the State Securities Board to conduct these kinds of offerings. What that means is there are now 27 million Texans who can invest locally in projects near them. Each person can invest up to $5,000 per investment, per project, and each company can raise up to $1 million in equity every 12 months. For MassVenture, we collect a 5 to 9% fee on the platforms that come through our portal, which means that we can earn up to $45,000 per transaction. How big of a market is this? Well, if you look at crowdfunding globally, last year it was a $35 billion market. And as Robin mentioned, this is something that's actually been occurring in the UK and other places before it came here to the States. And in 2012, real estate was a $90 billion a year industry, and that's just for commercial. And we sit at the intersection of these two markets. Each one of them is projected to be a $180 billion market independently by the end of 2018. And we've carved out a unique market position. There are companies like Lending Club and Prosper that do peer-to-peer lending. Some of you may have heard of them. Lending Club did a IPO in 2014 at $1 billion valuation, and Prosper's at 1.9 now. But they're not in the real estate market. There are companies in the real estate market like Realty Mogul and Fundrise. You may have heard Fundrise just raised $50 million for a REIT. But they focus purely on accredited investors and are outside of our target market in terms of the projects that they sponsor, which leaves MassVenture as the only retail crowdfunding platform to service the non-accredited investor market. And for companies and ventures that are coming to us, they have choices on capital, and we're another tool in that tool belt, but we think we're better than many of the other opportunities. If you look at most of these projects, they've been funded by hard money, which is fast. In fact, they are able to beat us on speed every time. But the terms and the paperwork and the conditions are onerous for issuers. Banks have a really low cost of capital. We're not going to be lending out at 2.5% or 1.7% or whatever a bank's lending at. But the fees and challenges that we are able to solve for them is that we're faster and we have easier paperwork than a bank process would. Plus, compared to all of these other platforms, we have a network effect, which makes us very unique. That means when someone's going out and building a project in their community, they can have their investors as the members of the community. If you're a real estate developer, think about what this does for your zoning discussions. Think about what this does for bringing customers back into your project or into your business. So what our platform allows people to do is invest small amounts of money in a diversified fashion directly into Texas real estate. MassVenture abstracts away the complexity. We handle the banking, the escrow process, release of funds. We handle the interactions with the Securities Board and the filings, and we handle investor accounting for this process so that for the investor and for the project, it's a simple, easy transaction. Since we obtained our registration earlier this year, we raised a $250,000 pre-seed round, which allowed us to build a product and get it to market. We worked on a banking and interaction API so that all of our transactions with our banking partner are seamless and electronic. We've identified a high-volume submarket in real estate, and we launched the first investment crowdfunding raise in Texas. We joined Collide Village and collected our first revenue. And what we've learned and improved upon in Collide has really made a big difference in our business. We were able to take our cost of acquisition for investors from more than $105 down to $41. That's a big, big improvement. And we found some fantastic channels for marketing that really return well for us. We increased our funnel conversion by 300%, and we've significantly reduced the time to activation between a point when someone registers and a point when they're able to make an investment. And we've seen fantastic growth. This is one of my favorite slides. We have over 1,200 investors on the platform already, and that is growing organically 7% month over month. That's a 200% annualized growth rate. And our ventures are continuing to fund greater and greater percentages of the offering from the crowd. In fact, we found out this morning that our San Antonio project will be completed as we have funds in transit. So we're excited about that. We have new projects already on tap for January and February. So where can we go from this? We get a tremendous outreach from people that are sponsors, real estate developers that want to use this platform. In fact, we've got probably more inbound than we could ever handle. And we have some really great high-end projects coming up in Dallas, Austin, Fort Worth, and San Antonio. But where we need help is in growing this growth curve. The blue line that you see is our organic curve. It's great. I'm very happy with it. But if we can increase our marketing budget to $10,000 a month, we can go from our existing 7% growth rate to a 20% month-over-month growth rate. And our projections show that if we can increase that spend to $25,000 a month, we can hit 30 to 50% growth rate. There are a number of channels right now that we're simply priced out of that we've been able to evaluate, but we don't have the budget to be able to spend into. As a result, we're seeking a $650,000 Series Seed preferred raise at a $3.5 million valuation. We're also looking on a parallel track for committed capital into our projects. You may be involved in multiple different investments, and so you can invest in MassVenture while you also invest in the real estate that we fund through our platform. Typically, what we target on those investments is 8 to 18% cash-on-cash return for over a 12 to 36-month hold period. So we're really interested in talking to you, and if there's anyone out there that wants to come find us, Adriana and Ethan are in the back. I'll be back by the tables as well, and we'd like for you to help us change the way Texas invests. Thank you.